Hiya, my name's Jo, and today I'm doing a workshop for Imperial Health Charity, and we're going to have a go at doing some surrealist collages. Before we start, I'd like to share with you these two images by an artist called Luke Robson. And he's a surrealist collage artist, and he actually does a lot of his work digitally. But I think they're really interesting in relation to what we're doing today as well. So as you can see here, Luke Robson, he takes images that are already existing and he cuts them up and takes sections of them that he likes and puts them together in a new way. And so in this first image, you can see that he's taken these mountains from one picture, the sky is actually from somewhere else, the grass cuts across the bottom, and this actually is a very kind of at first glance it looks like it could be natural, like it could be the edge of a hill in the foreground, but this straight line here, that has been digitally created and wouldn't exist in a real photograph. And again, he's put these trees in as well, and then not only has he used lines that look like they could be quite natural, he's also used these very abstract shapes, and he's cut these kind of directional shapes with these triangles to kind of cut across the piece and draw your eye in different directions and draw your attention to different things. And this is another of his pieces that I really like. And again, he's cut the page up into sections. You've got the triangle of the dark sky there, and this strip across the bottom, combined with this circle, which kind of looks like it might be the sun or the moon setting in the distance behind the mountains. And actually not only that, but the mountains fade into the clouds as well, and the edge look like they could be similar. So it's one of the things that surrealist artists often do, is that they use lines in their pictures, not traditionally where they represent real objects, but where objects blend into one another because the lines continue. So now we're going to have a go at making our own surrealist collage. Here's the one that I've made earlier. I'm going to run through a few basic steps and techniques today, and I hope that they're really helpful to you. But there is so much potential with surrealist collage that you can take what you want, and if there are bits of advice that you don't like, then leave them onto one side and just use the things that you do like. All right, so let's get started. So this is what you're going to need for today's workshop. I've got some old magazines that I can rip up. I've got some coloured paper, a pair of scissors, and some PVA glue. So you could use Pritt stick instead, but I've got PVA glue and then an old paintbrush just to spread it with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my magazine, I'm going to have a flick through, and I'm going to have a look and see if I can find any images that resonate with me. And this means something that I connect with on an emotional level. And you don't have to be able to explain that connection, and it doesn't have to be the whole image that you like. So you could have a look through and say this image, for instance, I really like the lady in it, but I'm not so fussed about the lavender. So I'm just going to tear the whole image out anyway at this point, and put it to one side, and I'm going to keep looking through my magazine until I've got a few different images where something in that image has piqued my attention, and that could be people or objects in the images, or it could be some of the textures and the colours, because they'll be really useful as well. So once you've got a nice collection of images, you're going to have a look through them, and this is where we're going to start thinking about cutting out more specifically some of the bits that we want to use. And so I've got this image of these two boys, for instance, and I'm not particularly interested in the shop, so I'm going to have a go at cutting out the figures and just keeping those separately. There might be other images where you quite like the background that is on it. For instance, I've got this baby in the basket, and so I've just cut this out in a square, and I actually really like that at the moment. So for the moment, I'm going to leave it like that. But basically at the moment what we're doing is we're getting rid of anything that we know we don't want to include in our collage. And so sometimes that might be the background, sometimes that might be a specific object in the image, and sometimes it might just be a case of where we've torn it out, cutting down the edge to just clean up the edges so that we're not having to worry about where we've torn things off and getting rid of the excess bits that we haven't. So I'm just going to cut my images out. Sometimes you might find cutting out really tricky, and particularly if you want to get really into the edges of your picture like this one. And so just a little bit of advice on cutting out is what I like to do is when I'm cutting things out, I will always move the paper more than you move my scissors. And this can help. Rather than trying to move your scissors all over the place, you just move the paper around. Even you've just got to concentrate on moving things. And you just push your scissors together really slowly and make really little cuts. I always find it easier to use near the hinge of my scissors rather than using the edges, because I feel like I have a bit more control over that bit. So if you're struggling, have a go with following that advice. The other thing that I sometimes do is if I start to have bits on the edge that I know I don't want anymore, I'll cut those bits off and I'll cut much closer around the edge of the objects, and then it's a bit easier to cut into and do different sections, and that can make cutting out much more easy and simple. The other thing is, if you are really struggling with your cutting out, then you can just cut geometric shapes instead. It's like I cut a square here. You might also have a think about whether you want to do circles or triangles, and it'll give your collage a slightly different feel, but that's it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just different. So there's a way of doing this no matter what your skills are with a pair of scissors. Don't worry too much, because we can always work with what we've got. So you can see here I've chosen a lovely green piece of paper, that's going to be my background for my collage. And I've started to lay out all of the pieces that I've cut out so far. You might have found when you're cutting out that there's some really annoying bits where you would have liked to have had the whole shape, but you kind of got the edge of the photograph to deal with. You can use those to start to think about where things might be and put them along the edge of the paper. You might also find that you'd left edges around things like this one and you wanted to take them off, so I've just taken that one off. And as you kind of start to lay things down, you start to get a bit more of an idea of what your collage might be and how it might all fit together. So I've got to this stage and obviously it's a little bit empty, and I want to start creating a scene here. So I'm going to add, I've cut out a bit of ground to go on the bottom, and actually this is going to extend my collage down a little bit and start to make it a little bit bigger, which is fun. And then I can start to play with these things. You can see here that this maybe is a slightly odd shape with the diagonal line cut, but there was a pipe in there that I didn't want. So I cut that out and it's created this quite interesting line here. And then the other thing that you can do, so you can look at this and you can either think, oh, well, I'm actually like to have a look on through some magazines, see if I can find some trees that would go in there to kind of bring this section together. Or you might also have a look at, I've got some coloured paper and I think that it might be nice. I've just cut some random shapes out. So I've got these triangular shapes here, and they're quite fun because they create a bit of direction along the piece. So I'm just going to feed those in. And you'll notice I haven't stuck anything down yet because I'm still very much playing with the idea of what it might look like. And I've got these circular shapes as well. So they might go around there. These guys, they get a bit lost on this colour. They obviously were on a really dark background before, so I've just cut out a square to make them sit out really boldly. And this purple colour, it matches here and it matches here, and it starts to bring the whole piece together. It's kind of one composition, which I quite like. So you're just kind of going to keep working on this. You might find, so I cut out this massive horse, but I found that it doesn't really fit, and I'm not sure that I actually want to use it. So I'm going to leave him to one side. But basically at this point, what I'm trying to do is to create a sense of space. And so I've got foreground down here, and this is a bit more background, and then I've got some direction that leads the eye. Because I haven't stuck anything down, I can poke bits and pieces underneath and play with what's in the foreground and what's in the background. There we go. So I think I'm quite happy with that now. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to take a photo of my design on my phone, because when I'm sticking it together, I'm probably going to move all the pieces around, and I want to remember exactly where everything's gone because I'm really happy with this composition. So I've just taken a picture and I can use that as a reference while I'm sticking everything down. So you can see here I've started to stick some of these elements down. One of my top tips for doing this is, for this one, I've just stuck these sections down so that it holds in place, but I've left this as a flap here so that I can continue to put some of the elements that I had underneath back in there. Just going to check my reference photo again. When I'm gluing, you can see I'm not using loads of glue, I'm just using a really small amount. You find that when you use loads of glue, when you use loads of glue, the paper starts to wrinkle up and takes a long time to dry. So you only need a tiny little bit. And I've also got this cloth here that I'm using to wipe away any excess bits of glue that I don't need. You can always go back and stick things more carefully, down once you've finished. So I'm just going to go back and stick down some of these sections that I've only roughly stuck down for the moment. So here you go, you can see I've got my I've got my collaged artwork, everything's stuck down. I've got a few things that's sticking out over the edge, and that's okay. So I'm just going to trim those off now. Everything's stuck down and I know exactly where the edge is going to be. Okay. And you might look at it at this point and go, oh, maybe there is, like, I've got quite a big blank space down here. And so I'm going to have a go at filling that. Another little dot here that I might put down there just to bring the whole thing together. Collaging is often a bit of a fine line between adding too many different elements and wanting to bring the whole thing together as one composition. Yeah, so here we go. Here's my finished collage. I hope that you guys have lots of fun with this. Yeah, have a go.